How the crates are numbered. The crates will always be stenciled with numbers sequentially from 1. Each crate is color-coded to help identify which components are to be packed in which crate.
Crate number 1 has the setup drawings, repacking drawings, and hardware in it. There is a brown envelope glued to the inside of the crate lid that houses the setup drawings.
Repacking drawings are the map to finding the components in the crates and to help the repacking process. Inside each crate, the components either have their specific placement packing tracks, or they are in envelopes or packing sleeves that have names on them, some with an image of the content. Always open your hardware boxes to identify the hardware that is packed with your exhibit. There is a list provided of what hardware is included in the hardware boxes. Tools included: Allen wrenches for the alignment bars, screwdrivers, wrenches for the Lumiture brackets and the base plates, keys, roller for installing the clear tubing and the fabric banners, extra screws and bolts for brackets, and jumpers for lights. Setup drawing. Right side of the drawing has important caution notes and notices. It is really important to read all the notes on the right hand side of the setup drawing before you start the setup process. They generally talk about the setup sequences, disclaimers, and the information that exponents and the installers/supervisors are responsible for.
Equipment that exponents recommends for the exhibit installation. The hardware list that has quantities of the hardware to be used and packed with the exhibit.
The legend explains the symbols used on the setup drawings so you can identify the numbers and the drawing's language better. The bottom of the setup drawing indicates the contact information. In the case of emergencies at show site, you should always use the 800 number before investing labor into solving any problems. Exponents must be given the opportunity to solve any and all show site problems. Floor plan page. The floor plan is always on the left-hand side of the setup drawing on page number 1. For Lumiture exhibit installations, before you start the setup process and laying the carpet, you need to lay the base plates down first. Start the measuring process on one side first and tape the location of at least 2 corners of each base plate. When laying the padding over the base plates, cut the padding around the studs.
It is very important to use thin padding with Lumiture exhibits.
Setup instructions. The numbers are to be used for the setup sequence. The alphabets are details related to each part of the setup. They also appear on the top thumbnail of the related visual details.
Main drawings: channel numbers, bracket numbers, light sizes and order, infill order and names, wire management diagram.
Lumiture setups. Place your base plates before laying the carpet. Using the floor plan, mark 2 corners of the base plates on the floor, then place your base plates in position. Lay the carpet down and cut across right where the base plate studs are. For safety purposes, put visible tape over the studs so you don't step on them.
Labels. Please note that all lights are labeled. Do not remove light.
There are 2 lights in the middle of the frame with this label on it. Remove this light for packing. And they have another label on the frame where these lights are to be located for packing that reads, "Place the removed light here." The removable lights have colored dots, green and red. The same dot is on the side of the frame where these lights need to be placed, and on the middle of the frame where the lights are to be placed for packing. These dots are to make sure they are in the correct orientation.
All brackets have been labeled. Do not remove screws from bracket.
Each frame has the alphabet name like A, B, C, and they are on a white round label in each part of the frame.
Each bracket has a numeric name on it and is repeated at each seam.
Assemble your frame. Take out the Lumiture frame members from each crate. Lay the Lumiture frame members on the floor following the numbering order marked on each bracket. Please note that the round labels are lettered for the Lumiture frame components and the squared box numbers are for the brackets. The numbers start at the bottom left side of the frame. Match the numbers at each joint like 1, 1, 2, 2.
The end cap with the big electrical hatch is at the bottom of the frame, and the hatch is to bring the electrical cords from the floor to the frame.
The fasteners for the brackets are always attached to the bracket. Before putting frames together, remove the fasteners. Attach your straight pieces first, and then attach the straight pieces to the end caps.
Before you attach the straight members to the end caps, connect all lights. Please follow the labeling instructions and compare them with the setup drawings.
Slide the bracket into the channel, hand tighten the bolts slightly. Before completely tightening your bolts, slide the alignment bars from each side, complete the fastening of the straight bracket, and then screw down your alignment brackets. Use socket wrench for brackets and Allen wrenches for alignment bar.
Before standing up the frame, plug in your lights to make sure all the lights are properly connected and there is no problem with the light assembly.
Stand up your frame using 2 installers for short frames, 3 installers for tall frames. After you stand up your frame, bring your electrical cords into the hatch located on the bottom of the frame. Connect the frame to the base plates and make sure they are tightened. At this point, run all of your electrical cords, monitors, and additional lights through the gray tubing that is in the channel. Manage the loose wires at the bottom of the frame and organize them so the wires do not create shadows. Infill Assembly 1. The numbers on the infill are ID codes and do not indicate sizes. Please follow the setup drawing for location of the infills. Identify the 2 different lengths of tubing provided and use the correct size for attachment of the infill. The shorter ones are mainly for the top and bottom of the frame. Start the infill attachment from the bottom of the frames. Please note the infills with handles are to be installed last on each section of the frame. Slide the infill from the top of the channel to the side. Then slide it back to the other side of the channel.
Please note, the bevel side of the plex should be in the corners. The numbers are always facing up.
You may need to overlap the infills to get them in the channel. Make sure all infills are in their appropriate position. Insert the tubing on both sides of the infill using the roller provided with tools. Whenever there's a counter, there are two square hatches on the bottom vertical infill. Those hatches are to bring the electrical cords through the counters. There are also electrical access holes on some infills for managing the electrical cords to the plasmas and the canopies. Infill Assembly 2. Our new infill connection has a pre-mounted rubber retaining strip attached to the frame members. Push one edge of the infill to one side of the retaining strip, push down the other side, and it is all done.
Use suction cups provided for removing the infills.
Skin attachments. Attach the skin brackets to the frame. It is very critical to make sure that all the T hardware is properly attached. All skins have numbers engraved on the back of them corresponding with the numbers shown on the setup drawing.
On the back of the skins, there are fingers for alignment.
Place the skins on the frame and tap on top of the skins at the Duralock location until you hear the Duralock engage.
It is critical to double check to make sure the skins are in place.
Counter attachment. When counters are used, base plates aren't required. The right hardware for the counter attachment is the KT2. Slide the counter in the frame and connect with KT2 hardware.
Please note, it is extremely critical for the hardware to be attached properly in the channel slot. At the show site, you need 4 people when you have a counter assembly. 2 people will hold the frame and the other 2 connect the hardware. Do not leave the frame unattended while the counter is being installed, since there is no base plate when you have a counter.
Beam sealing attachment. The beam connectors are already attached to the frame members and to the beams. Use 2 tall ladders. Required sizes are stated on the setup drawings. You can also use a genie lift to hold the weight of the beam. After you have connected the beams together, test the lighting before installing the beams in position. Lift up the beam and hook the connector to the pre-mounted bracket on the frame and tighten. Note that the power cord for the beam is in the frame and it should be pulled out from the electrical access hole located beside the bracket on the frame. Canopy attachment. Make sure to use the right hardware for attachment of the canopy. The right hardware for this attachment is the KT2 with washer.
It is very critical for the hardware to attach properly.
Connect the plug to the cord that is out from the electrical access hole in the infill. Plasma assembly attachment. Slide the plasma assembly into the frame and connect with proper KT1 hardware. Make sure the location of the plasma assembly is as marked on the setup drawing. Since all the tolerances are so tight, sometimes you need to work slowly when sliding the bracket into the frame.
Measure in between the horizontal posts to make sure it's as marked in the drawings.
At last, mount your plasma panel on the monitor assembly using KT2 hardware. There are hatches on top of these posts for wire management. Shelf assembly attachment. Mark the frames for the hardware following the drawings. Attach the top of the cables to the frame and let them hang. Attach the shelves by sliding the cable through the notches and let the shelves sit on top of the cable crimped hardware. After attaching all shelves, connect the bottom part of the cables to the frame. Hanging banner assembly. Slide the rod through the banner pole pocket. Line up the notch on the banner with the hole on the bar. Attach the eye bolt to the bar on all corners. Attach the brackets to the frames.